What's up, everyone? We're back for another episode of the Blacksburg Buzz. Got a special guest for you all today, Kolby Crawford with 24/7 Sports. Kolby, how you doing?
Doing good, Kyle. Appreciate you having me on. Looking forward to this is a cool podcast you started up. So yeah, looking forward to talking some hoops today.
Yeah, for sure. So today we're going to be covering a couple of things. We're just going to be talking about a little bit of Colby's time with 24/7 Sports. We're going to be talking some recruits. We've got two coming in right now for the 2024 season, the 2024 recruiting class. And then we're just going to talk a little bit about the men's season. Is there a path to the tournament and what we think that might look like? So let's jump right in. Kolby, give us a little bit about what you've been doing with 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of crazy. We're obviously both in the sports media program, working over there at 3304. So that's pretty cool. But the opportunity arose last spring now to start working over there with VT Scoop and 24/7. It's kind of been great. I kind of didn't really know what I was doing at first, so I'm being very honest, but kind of got through to the fire. But now we're just in the swing of things, doing football, basketball, recruiting, talking to people. It's been good. It's just been a really cool experience, and I don't know. I mean, the transfer portal, just everything about it's been great. So love the writing, the video aspect, and hopefully gonna have some cool stuff coming out here soon with it.
Yeah, dude. I mean, your stuff's been awesome. What do you think, like, the best person you've been able to cover has been, like, the most fun for you?
Yeah. There's so many. I don't like we have like the Inside the Tunnel podcast, which is cool, and I've been able to be on a couple of those with Chance Wiggins and Tyler Nickel and Brandon Rexsteiner, and or even when you do like a feature piece on someone, like I got to interview APR Antoine Powell Ryland. It's when you get to talk to these people one on one, and they see you after the fact, either at practice or post game press conferences. It's just the bond you start to build. So I don't know if it's anyone. Everyone I've dealt with has been super cool and gracious with their time. So it's just getting to know these people and showing people like, hey, these are people too, and so are we. Just getting to kind of get their story inside out there, which is really cool.
Do you feel like it's been interesting at all, like, being a student working on the recruiting side and dealing so much with them and, you know, going and talking to, say, like a high school kid that's maybe coming to tech next year and being like, I'm only, 2, 3 years older than you.
Yeah, it's definitely different. I think it's kind of an advantage almost because you see a lot of these people. I mean, obviously they're older. This is like their main profession. Like, obviously 24/7 Sports is like a massive recruiting database, and a lot of the pretty much all the national like recruiters and scouts are obviously grown people. So it's definitely interesting and a different experience when they have someone who's only 19 years old, like a couple years removed from them, hitting them up. So I haven't really talked about it with anyone, but I guess it is a change of pace when it's like, look, I'm a student too. Like I'm going through the same thing, and I guess it's cool. It's definitely a different aspect though, because I feel like you can relate because you're in that same kind of sphere. I was just in high school a couple years ago. Obviously, not getting recruited at the level that these people are, but still, I think it's just cool to be able to relate with them.
Yeah. So, speaking on recruiting, let's talk a little bit about those two guys coming from the 2024 class. We've got Ryan Jones and we got Tyler Johnson, both out of Florida. Brian
Yeah,
Jones, first of all, he's one of the best recruits Tech has ever received. 4 stars. He was sitting at, I think it was 23rd in his class at one point, but he got hurt and he fell a little bit. So, what have you been able to do with Ryan and see from him?
yeah, Ryan. I mean, just a great player. He's the fourth highest recruit ever to come to Tech, and I think the number he was 18th in the class when the rankings dropped initially. He had a 96th grade, so which is pretty crazy. He's still the fourth highest recruit ever. Um, 6'10", 6'11", big guy, big, strong, good frame, big shoulders. He's a bruiser down there too. I mean, he fights for rebounds, defensive intensity, but smooth shot. He really can do it all. It's yeah, I don't really like making comparisons, but I think one of the biggest things about Ryan that is going to be advantageous for the squad is Justin Mutz was a great facilitator down low. On the block, he could pass out of the low post. run offense from the elbow. And Ryan, he has great hands, great footwork, and is a great underrated distributor. So I think having that 5 or swing 4 kind of guy that can distribute out of the block in the elbow, low post, and initiate the offense is great. But he's also a guy who can go find his own shot, work out in the post, smooth jump shot. Like I said, like a above average 3-point shooter. So I think he has the potential to be really good for this Virginia Tech team. But you mentioned that knee injury. How's he going to come into camp? Haven't really heard much out of him from out of the Rock School this season in Gainesville. So we'll see. But like you said, top rated prospect, great pickup for Coach Young and the staff. He has a great relationship with assistant coach Kevin Giltner, and right. I mean, great athlete, but even a better person off the court, at least in my dealings. So it'll be very exciting, and I think the fans will be pleased to see him up in Blacksburg next fall.
Yeah, you mentioned how you think he's gonna fit in really well with the Mike Young system. I think his shooting is really gonna be that beneficial piece. Just we know how Mike Young loves to have shooters surrounding the perimeter, and that's really one of the things that makes the current team tick is their 3-point shooting, just having all of those weapons around.
Yeah, and I mean, a big component to that Mike Young offense, like he in the past, I remember like 2019, like big component of a lot of those squads was 5 out. They were running 5 out offenses with guys all around the perimeter. And next year or whenever with what's coming back, I think you could realistically run some of those lineups with you got B Rock, you got Tyler Nickel, obviously. Ryan Jones can lace it. Jaden Young with the way he's playing. I mean, you really just had the freedom to do a lot of different things. But what makes him so good, I think, is that versatility. He can step out and shoot it. He can guard the wing. He can guard down low. I mean, he can really guard 2 through 5, 3 through 5. He moves well for his size. I so I mean, like you said, in that shooting, it's a real smooth stroke, and I think it'll translate well to the college game. So
I I did see one thing that mentioned he would probably fit in well where kind of the gap from Grant Basile, he would kind of fit in well in that sort of aspect. How do you feel about that? Do you think that's an accurate comparison to some extent?
yeah, I think that's a great comparison. I mean, Grant was a guy who could come in, guard the perimeter. He was kind of forced to guard down low, which for his size he had to, but sometimes he kind of got exposed on the defensive end there. But he was a guy, I mean, there towards the end, he was giving you 20 and 10 every night on 40% from the 3-point line. And I think that's exactly where Ryan could be at that. I mean, at that level, they're about the same height, 6'10", 6'11". They both have great frames, but can move. I mean, Grant was nimble as all get out, and I think Ryan can be. It's just I think it'll be big to get him up here this summer, get him in the weight room, conditioned back healthy. I think that's really the biggest thing, especially with these high school guys, is getting to campus, getting acclimated, getting ready to go. But I mean, he has like a frame. He's had that frame since he was 16. That's why he was rated so high in USA basketball. He on the U16, U18 team. His frame is just insane, and it's been like that. So he has a college ready body to go, and yeah, I think he could easily slip into that stretch 4 or 5 role with Grant Basile. But I think he also has the plus side of being an elite passer. So maybe
Mhm.
even another dimension to that game.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun having him here. And then we've also got Tyler Johnson coming in, small forward from Orlando, 3-star. I think I saw he had an 88 overall ranking by you guys in the composite. What have you seen out of Tyler?
Yeah, Coach Webster was actually obviously Virginia Tech in the drubbing of UVA on Monday night, beat him by 34. Coach Webster hit the road yesterday and was in at Oak Ridge in Orlando to go see Tyler Johnson and his teammate. So funny enough, I think Tyler like great at 88. I know in the composite he's like 230th or something, but
Hmm.
I mean, just an elite player. And people like to draw the comparison between MJ Collins and Jaden Young and how they're similar. I think Tyler Johnson has that, but he's got more size. He's 6'5". He's super athletic, can jump out of the gym, great shooter, and he really wasn't on the coach's radar. He had a the biggest thing was he got offered after the Peach Jam EYBL. He like he was playing for the Florida Rebels, I think, and he was averaging like 9 points, 5 rebounds or something. But he had a great Peach Jam this summer, and in Peach Jam, I think he was going average like 12 points, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, 1.8 assists, and he got on the all breakout team there. And that was what really got him noticed because he had a great summer there. He had like the clip going viral of him throwing it off the backboard and dunking it himself. He's guarding some of the top guys in the country there. And I think that's the biggest thing about him was just intensity. His motor is, I think that's what jumps off the page because Oak Ridge is a great team. Right, they're first ranked team in 7A down in Florida right now. I think they only have 2 losses to 2 prep schools. Last year he was averaging like 17-9. I think he's up to like 19-10 this year for a great school. He's playing along Jameer Johnson, who's a top-rated recruit in the class of 2025. They've got a great team down there, and his motor, his size, his shooting upticked at Peach Jam. I think he was shooting like only 24% from three-point line. Granted, and not many attempts. He shot 50%, but it was just one tournament. So it's an aspect to his game that seems to be a bit flashy, but he can lace it out there. 3-level scorer, great jump shot, can drive to the paint and get his own basket. But the defensive intensity, I think, is what really sticks off because he's efficient, but also gives his motor on the defensive end for all 40 minutes.
Yeah, when you mention how, he has his days where he's just crazy at three, he's a real slasher, and that defensive side, it really does make you think exactly like MJ Collins. That's, when you describe MJ Collins, those are probably the 3 things that come to mind first. And he's been fantastic for Tech so far.
Yeah, but he's a little bit bigger. He's listed at 6'5". He's really probably 6'6", so he can guard. I know MJ's usually stuck to maybe that 2 guy on the other guy, maybe a 3 guy depending on the size. But I think Tyler's still. I think his body is ready. His frame is ready for the next level. But he's definitely going to fill out when he gets here. Gets on the college meal plan. Gets in the weight room. Gets on the program. So I really think he can maybe even guard it, like if needed, if they want to run small, maybe even up to the 4 because he's still growing. But I think, like you said, very similar skill sets between those two. And I think a very underrated pickup that's going to surprise a lot of people next year.
Yeah, I really think that, Tyler Johnson, he has a lot higher ceiling than maybe what shows up when you're looking at all of his recruiting things. You don't really see the potential there all the time with just those pure stats, but watching him play and seeing just the aspects of his game, I think he could really take a huge jump up in college once he gets a little experience under his belt.
Yeah, 100%. I'm very high on him. The coaching staff's very high on him. To go all the way from Blacksburg, Virginia, one day after beating your rival to go. They won by 25 last night, I think, and I forget how many points he had, but obviously it was a good game. So Coach Webster's really involved and high on him. So I'm glad they got him in the boat, and I think it'll be exciting to see what he does here in Blacksburg.
Yeah, and that doesn't even speak on his commitment. He, from the beginning of the recruiting process at Tech to when he signed, was almost no time at all. He made a visit, and his decision was 4 days later. Like, you can tell that he's really into this team. He didn't want to wait around.
100%, and that's what I said. The whole process was sped along. Peach Jam, I think, was at the end of July, sometime in July. So the Hokies really weren't on him early, but after it's crazy how nowadays you can have one viral clip, one great tournament, catch coach's eye. Because now in a day and age where everyone gets ratings and stars and everything, there's still those guys who slip through the cracks. There's players who you're not invested in, you don't know, and they go off and show you one thing, and then you get an offer, and then a couple weeks later you're on campus. 4 days later you're committing. A month later you're signed. Things move quick, so it's pretty crazy and cool with him. But really now, like, one tournament, one game, one viral clip can change your whole recruiting process or college journey. So
yeah, really crazy how all that happened just in that one Peach Jam tournament. So 2 really solid recruits coming in for Tech from the 2024 class. Looking forward to having them here. But moving back to the team this year, they've there's been a lot of highs and lows this season. We've seen, the highs of beating Iowa State, but the lows of, losing to Notre Dame and then coming back and just dominating UVA. Is that kind of what you expected from this year?
I don't know if much of what happened this year is expected. When you start the preseason, and the writing wasn't on the wall, but there at the end, just the way the situation with Rodney deteriorated, you obviously lose a big, massive component of the team. So you're playing without a scholarship, playing with your kind of hands tied behind your back. Now, this team still has talent, but just when a couple things go the wrong way, you're expecting and going off with a couple things. It throws you for a loop just realistically. But I think we're sitting probably right about where most of the media and I thought. I predicted obviously a little higher. I think I was at 21-10 and 12-8 in conference play. Now, if they run the table, I think they finished 20-11 and 11-9. So is my prediction looking realistic? No, probably. But I think most media outlets before the season had the Hokies sitting about 6th to 9th in the ACC, and I think that's probably where they're going to finish. Where they're going to finish up realistically.
Mm-hmm.
When you see them play those games, like you mentioned against Iowa State and Virginia, they are realistically one of the best teams in the country. It's just the issue with consistently putting that product on the floor. The Notre Dame game on the road, the Miami game on the road, you're up 10. Florida State on the road, you come out flat. It's just, how do you control the controllables there and just stay on the runs and play consistent ball together? And I don't know. I think it really stems from the defensive end. Last year, Hunter goes down for those games, and you see the defensive issues, and that's what really drove Mike Young up a wall. Big emphasis this offseason. And I think the defense, when you play their defense is up in the SP Plus rankings, they beat Iowa State, one of the best teams, if not the best defensive efficiency teams in the country. Top 10 in Ken Palm. You beat UVA very handedly, one of the best teams defensive efficiency. I think this team can really defend. They can lace it, and everyone likes to say they live and die by the three, but I think there's a lot of other things in there that kind of affect it. And then Mike Young in his press conference the other day, it's not like the way he was trying to just find, like, it's been so confusing. He's been ripping his hair out. Why can't we play like that all the time? Because he's like, I think he just knows that this team is capable of playing at that level, and he just doesn't. He's just searching for the reason to get that product on the floor consistently. So, like you said, I mean, still a lot of games left, and a lot can happen, as we know. But it'll be interesting to see how these last 5 pan out here.
Yeah, the highs and lows have been crazy. At home, they're almost unstoppable, but the second the Hokies go on the road, it's like a new team steps out on the floor. They've only won, was it 1 or 2 home games or 1 or 2 away games this year? They've struggled outside of, the electric arena that is Castle Coliseum, which we saw in its A+ tier last week against UVA, but when they go on the road in those hostile environments, they've just really struggled, especially in that second half. Like we saw with Miami, like we saw with Notre Dame, the shooting just wasn't there.
You can't undersell the environment of Castle enough. Only 2 losses to a great Duke team, which I think you would still like to have that game back, in a Miami game that's now, that Miami game is now quad 3 because they fell out of 75 in the net. That's a game that you definitely would want back inside Castle, but you can't undersell that environment. It's incredible. It lifts this team. They play great in front of the home fans. But you mentioned the away teams coming out a little flat, which you kind of can't control. And I know Coach Young and the staff hates to see that. And then also finishing down the stretch. Now, a lot of that is Sean Padula having to play 38 minutes in those games. On the road, you're traveling. A lot of those guys just not really getting the rotations. You're tired. And then when the crowd's against you, you're not getting that extra boost. You're not getting that extra adrenaline pushing you through down the final stretch. So it's hard, but there's definitely a couple of those road games that you look at and you're like, man, if we could have snagged that one or this one, we're looking at it a little bit different. But the cards have been dealt like they are, so just try and make the most of what is now.
Yeah, those Padula minutes, it seems like over the last couple games, they've really added up. He's struggled a little bit more shooting, but at the same time, can you really blame him? He's spending almost every minute on the floor, and Padula's the guy running the offense. He's the guy always in motion, hustling everywhere, and that just wears you down after a while.
Yeah, he had a nice bounce back game against UVA. I know it maybe didn't show up in the point section of the box score efficiency, but he was really running that offense. Like, and Coach Young said it after the fact. I mean, limited the turnovers, ran the offense very efficiently. Big reason they won that game, and maybe it didn't show in the points, but he did a lot of things to win. And really, the emergence of MJ Collins as a primary ball handler. I was talking to Coach Young post game one, and it's a double fist with him and Hunter. That's the set they run when MJ's taking it up the court. And I think really in the last 2 to 3 games, he's gained a ton of confidence and loves the looks he gets when MJ's running it. Because even when Sean was in the game against UVA, there was a lot of times they were running off-ball action for him with MJ taking it up. And in that UNC game, Sean Padula didn't play the last 8.5 minutes. MJ Collins was solely playing point guard. So I think it's really interesting to see that evolution. And it's also interesting because when Virginia Tech went on that 20-0 run against UVA, who was the point guard? It was MJ Collins who was running the show through that. So it's definitely a evolving roster rotation thing that's popped up here late. So it's interesting to see because MJ Collins played at point guard in high school. He's really a combo guard, can do it. So it's interesting now to see Coach Young kind of work actions off of that set and try and give Sean different looks off the ball. So just utilizing his weapons.
Yeah, you're totally right. Like MJ, he's grown so much this year. Watching the first couple games, you got a little bit worried about him for this season just because he seemed almost afraid to have the ball in his hands. He didn't have the confidence that some of those games last year you saw him build it up and you went, "Wow, MJ Collins can really be a talented player at Tech." And then at the beginning of the year, he struggled a little bit. He wasn't shooting as well. He just got into a slump, but he worked his way out of it. And now you see this just uber confident MJ Collins. He's running the point sometimes. He's playing a fantastic 2 slot when he's in. He's been all over, and he's a nightmare on defense too. So just the growth for him has been incredible to watch.
Yeah, 18 points at UVA. He had at UNC on Saturday. He had a great game there. I think that was big for his confidence. He went 7 of 15, 3 assists, 3 rebounds. He had 5 assists and 5 rebounds against UVA just on Monday. So I think just building his confidence. He knows he's a good shooter. It's just I think a lot of it's shot selection and just working that in. But I mean, he's a great player, and this team's going to need him, and he's going to have a massive role in the coming years. So I think it's good to see him getting evolved in his duties on the roster.
Yeah, him and Nickel, I think, have been they're going to be 2 really focal points for the next few years since we're losing Couture, which is going to be a huge hit, especially with the shooting. But having Nickel and MJ and them growing on the offensive end and the defensive end, I think is going to be a really big thing for the next couple of years to come.
Yeah, and also, I can't rave enough about Tyler Nickel, and I'm about to get into that, but MJ Collins, too. Like you said, I didn't even touch on his defensive game there. It's really we know Hunter Couture's prowess on the defending the perimeter and their best player, but MJ Collins can really slide into that role, take away the best guard on the other team, which is going to be massive. And he's really played well defensively. And now Tyler Nickel's a great player, and I think he's going to be a great player in this program when he's all said and done. But like you said, the biggest question mark with him coming in was defensive ability, and I think he's seen the biggest improvement. And I think that's make this coaching half so happy, is because you can really see how he's improved. He gives so much effort on the defensive end. I mean, for his size, he's 6'7", He's getting asked to sometimes guard the 4, having to guard a 3, guard a shifty 2, and he's really moving his feet well, active hands. The other at UNC, he has career high 3 blocks. I mean, against his former team, he's really showing his defensive tenacity. And then look at what else can you say? He's a dead eye shooter. Uh, 13 points at UNC, 14 points at UVA. I mean, he's shooting the 3 ball at over a 40% clip. He's doing a lot of really nice things, slashing, big time dunk. I mean, against UVA, just scoring, distributing. I think he had 6 assists, his career high in assists at UVA too, just on Monday. So he's impacting the game from so many different levels, and just seeing how this team is evolving, and a lot of guys who are making steps here down the stretch. It's really promising, and I know there's a couple bad losses in there, things you point to like this and that, but it's nice to see the promising and the development of the roster here down the stretch.
Yeah, it really does show that even if things don't work out this year, over the coming years, you can see where there are ways to improve and there are paths to more success than previously. But what do we think the path here to success is this year, if there is one? Do you think there's one? I do.
Yeah, I guess I'll go first, and then you could say your piece. It's I'm known for being sort of the blind optimist and almost being too positive at times. Like I said, my preseason prediction was 21-10 and 12-8 in the ACC. So that's where I was at. And even in football season, I was on the train and it kind of came around. But when we were 1-3, I thought we were going to beat Pitt. No one thought we were going to beat Pitt that next weekend. And it was like, I'm always the optimist, and I think this team could realistically win out. And even if they do win out, it's just hard for me because even a couple years ago, when the Virginia Tech was on that bubble going into the ACC tournament, I don't think if they don't win the championship game, they make it. And you don't want to leave it up to the committee there. I know 11 losses and a couple wins in DC would look nice. Big win over Iowa State, but if Miami doesn't keep winning, you got that quad 3 loss, which really hurts. It's just a couple little things that you look back, you're like, if we could just have that back. So I think realistically, the only chance this team gets in is if they have another magical run up in DC. Do I think it's possible for them to win out the last 5 games and make a deep run in the ACC tournament? I do. Will that convince the committee? I'm not really convinced of it because the committee's shown year over year. You hear all these media outlets, well, if they do a little bit in the ACC tournament, they do a little bit in the Big Ten tournament, then they're going to have to think. But they really don't value those early games in the tournaments as I think they should, but it just doesn't seem like they do. So I think they're going to have to just take control of their own destiny and win it. Now, you bring your counterpoint up, and I'll hear you.
Now, I agree with you for the most part. Obviously, winning the tournament for the ACC is the only lock to get in to March Madness, but I would say there's a shot. There's a shot. You're going to be on the bubble either way, I think, even if you win out and, maybe you win 2 games in the ACC tourney. I think there's a shot, but you're going to be on the bubble for sure. I love what you said. Don't leave it up to the committee. Obviously, that's best case scenario. You don't want to have your fate in someone else's hands, but I would say there's a chance, at least. I don't feel confident in saying it's a great one. I would say maybe it's an okay chance, but there is a chance, and, not what you want, but that's kind of what you're playing with here is the way I see it.
And like Kevin Garnett said, anything is possible.
It is. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, in 2022, we weren't expecting an ACC championship, were we?
Mm-hmm.
But
no, not at all.
Here we are. So
I think the biggest thing is getting that first one up at Pitt this weekend. Pitt's a really good team going on the road, and like you said, if you are gonna run the table, you're gonna have to take it one at a time. But now that Pitt team, I looked really good behind Hinson and them. I'm playing great ball, but then last night they got ran out of the gym at Wake Forest. Just absolutely ran out of the gym. I think they lost by 30 or some wild margin last night. Yeah, 91-58. Just a crazy margin down in Winston-Salem. To a great Pitt team who I think that was only their 9th loss. Yeah, that was only their ninth loss. So a Pitt team that is still right in the mix as well. I mean, the ACC, you can throw a blanket over like 4th through 10th. A lot of those teams are right there, just like right cuddled up right next to each other. So these last five are going to be big, but I think you're going to have to go up and play in a Pitt environment, man. They pack that place out. It gets loud. So you're going to have to come out. It can't come out flat. You have to close down the stretch to a good team.
Yeah, it's not where you want to be ideally at this point, but it isn't too far from what anyone expected. Tech is one of those teams that we kind of hang around the bubble most of the time. We're not a blue blood, and that's just a fact. But going on the road and playing Pitt, it's a little worrying just with Pitt being a really solid team and the Hokies just struggling on the road. So we're really gonna have to see how this plays out. And like you said, one at a time. If
Yeah.
you don't win the first one, does it really matter if you don't win the second? I mean, 4-5 out of the last couple, I don't think that's going to do it.
I
I
think
don't
the
think it's going to do
mindset.
it.
I agree with you, but I still think the mindset in that locker room is that they can win every game and every night they play, and they showed that beating a good UVA team by 34. So I think they're going to try and win out every. Obviously, they're going to try and
Yeah,
fight
I
for every
mean,
game, but at the same time, I think they have a exuberant amount of confidence going up to DC with their backs against the wall. Known, I mean this team's scrappy, and they're very together, I believe. So I think they're ready to do whatever it takes here. But I mean, going back to Pitt this weekend, if you just a quick preview, Blake Hinson, he's probably set for first team All ACC honors. I mean, 18.2 points per game. I mean, well, whatever. I think he's hovering around 19 and like 5 rebounds. I know he's shooting the 3-point ball, being a big forward at like 42% clip, which is insane. I really think he could be. I mean, I think he has all the intangibles to go play at the next level if he wants to, and I don't see how he doesn't make first team All ACC.
yeah, going to be a really tough one coming up, and then just a tough stretch to finish out. Well, just want to thank you for joining me, Kolby. It's been great talking to you. Look forward to seeing you at the next couple of tech games.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate you having me on, and yeah, it'll be good. Hopefully, we'll have some fun here down the stretch and see what happens out here in the tournament.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, man, and look forward to seeing you next time.
Yep. See you.
See ya.